Good afternoon. This lunchtime, the Council of Ministers have lodged a report and proposition seeking States Assembly approval to make changes to the controls on who can access work and housing in Jersey. Now, I want to make it very clear at the outset that this is actually not a population policy, but it is the first crucial step to setting the foundations on which a population policy can be developed. Now, there are two key measures of control that affect who can live and work in our island, and they are often confused, not only by the public, but politically and by those looking to bring their skills and experience to Jersey. They are, firstly, the immigration controls that Jersey applies because we are part of what is called the common travel area with the UK and Ireland, and secondly, the migration controls we apply in the island through the control of housing and work law. These two aspects interlock, and that is why we are setting out the changes for both of them today. Jersey's membership of the Common Travel Area links our immigration controls to the rest of the CTA and only affects non-British nationals. Those controls protect the island from those who are not conducive to the public good and from high immigration risk individuals. They provide a level of security and a system to effect net inward migration, and they protect the domestic labour pool. These rules are going to be subject to major changes coming with the end of the Brexit transitional period on the 1st of January, and the Minister for Home Affairs will speak momentarily about those changes. The control of housing and work system affects all individuals in the island irrespective of nationality and provides a system to control the overall population density of Jersey and the availability of work and housing. And today we are proposing quite significant changes that will allow improved controls and better understanding and use of data in managing migration. The details of these proposals will be set out by the Assistant Chief Minister, Deputy Huelin. So I'm now going to ask the Minister for Home Affairs, Constable Len Norman, to continue or outline rather Jersey's future borders and immigration system. Len, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chief Minister. Now, following the UK's decision to leave the European Union, free movement of EU nationals in the UK and in Jersey will end on the 31st of December this year. As a result, we have formulated Jersey's future border and immigration system, which will determine how EU nationals will be able to visit, work, study and settle in Jersey from the 1st of January 2021. We will ensure we maintain a robust immigration control under our obligations as member of the Common Travel Area and be aligned to the UK immigration controls. We will allow local employers to still access labour market outside of the Common Travel Area, plus allow for those people from outside the Common Travel Area to come to study here or join family members that are settled in Jersey. And where possible, the scheme will align with the proposed migration control policy by reducing net inward immigration, hence the reason for launching these together. Currently, immigration controls only affect those from outside of Europe. However, from the 1st of January 2021, if you're not a British or Irish national, you'll need an immigration permission to visit, work, study or settle in Jersey. Like the UK, we've ensured that all those EU nationals who are resident in the island now can get their immigration permission by applying to the settlement scheme. Individuals need to be here by the end of 2020 and have until 30th of June 2021 to apply. From the 1st of January next year, EU nationals who come to the island for the first time will be able to visit for up to 6 months without a visa. All those who wish to work, study or settle will need a visa before they arrive. Anyone who needs a visa to come to Jersey will be subject to criminality checks. From the 1st of October 2021, Jersey will not accept the insecure EU identity cards as travel documents for newly arriving EU nationals. However, those with settled or pre-settled status will be able to continue using their national identity cards until at least December 2025. Now, we recognise that Jersey's demographics are different to that of the United Kingdom, and the island relies more heavily on seasonal and temporary workers, particularly in agriculture and hospitality sectors, which employ a large number of EU nationals. Therefore, we have opened up and simplified the immigration routes for those who want to come and work in Jersey. In the same way as our immigration controls are working now, there will be the ability for skilled workers to come to the island who will be on an immigration permission that could lead to settlement. The main criteria for the skilled immigration route are £30,000 minimum salary, English language test, and the job to be at A-level or equivalent level. All these criteria are detailed in the updated work permit policy. There will also be a temporary permission for up to 9 months for those on lower incomes. The 9 months permission will not lead to settlement and will require 3 months absence before returning for a further 9-month period. This route is currently open to the agriculture, fishing and hotel sectors, and we've been working closely with these industries. Consideration will be given to any other sector who demonstrate the need to employ EU nationals. There won't be an immigration cap on the numbers that can come in and work. We will align with the control of housing and work permissions and rely on the business licenses that have been issued. Employers of those who need a visa to work in Jersey will need a work permit. We've updated the work permit policy and simplified it, as we expect there will be a larger number of employers who will actually need one. Visas will be needed for those who want to study in the island and those who want to join family members that are already settled here. Various other existing immigration routes will be open to EU nationals, including those who wish to establish themselves in business, investors, or fulfill trade in international services. Fees for immigration permissions and work permits won't be increased for 2021, but will be the same for EU nationals as they are for non-EU nationals now. I would also encourage any islanders wanting to know more to attend our Jersey Ready Beyond Brexit virtual events this Thursday and Friday to help prepare for the end of the Brexit transition period. I'll now pass to Assistant Chief Minister Roland Huelin. Thank you.
Thank you, Len. Ireland knows that Jersey has experienced rapid population growth in recent years. The population at the end of 2019 was up more than 20% on the 2001 figure, and this growth in population has led to some understandable tensions that are felt across our community. Whilst an increasing population does have some positive aspects, including the growth of a successful economy which is attractive to migrant workers and incoming businesses, it also brings pressures and challenges. Challenges on our housing, our traffic, our services, our natural environment. In 2018, the States Assembly endorsed the Common Strategic Policy aim to reduce Jersey's reliance on inward migration. And as the Chief Minister has said, the control of housing and work law manages who can access work and housing in Jersey. That system lacks effective controls, and we do not have an adequate picture of the individuals moving to the island or the value they contribute, both economically and socially. This lack of clear data prevents us from making informed decisions about the granting of permissions, preventing us from dealing with migration in a holistic, strategic way. Without the controls and the data, we cannot have an effective population policy, which is an overarching aim of the Council of Ministers. The Migration Policy Development Board, of which I was a member, was set up by the Chief Minister in March 2019 and comprised ministers, scrutiny representatives and lay members. Our final report and recommendations were published in March 2020 at the start of the pandemic. The proposals published today are based on the board's final report and have been endorsed by the Council of Ministers. So what are we proposing today? Firstly, a legal framework to provide more responsive migration controls to help actively manage overall population growth. It will amend the Control on Housing and Work Law to provide for 9-month, 4-year, 10-year and long-term permissions. It will remove the graduation mechanism, which allows migrants to automatically gain entitled to work and entitled housing status, and it will improve criminal record checks and identity validation. Secondly, an operational structure to support a simpler, more transparent application and approval process for migration and immigration permissions. This will improve existing joint working between customer and local services and the Jersey Customs and Immigration Service and help reduce duplicated effort across all of government. Thirdly, and critically from my perspective, we are proposing a new information structure to support improved data collection and analysis, with budget in 2021 to develop a new integrated IT system. This will be supported by the creation of an independent expert panel to research and advise on population matters. Fourthly, we propose a political structure to support the decision-making needed to create and maintain a holistic population policy. We will also establish an elected committee of states members to take decisions on unusual cases that fall outside published guidelines. At present, our rules on residency requirements for access to services are confusing. So finally, we are proposing a review of migrants' rights to ensure that Jersey remains an attractive and fair place to work. We also appreciate the tension that can exist between migration controls and family life, and we will review the impact of the proposed changes on families and children. We believe these proposals will provide the right structure and data necessary to finally develop the long-term population policy this island requires, based on a clear understanding of our migrant profile and industry needs. By coordinating our migration and immigration processes, streamlining decision-making, and creating a simpler, more transparent application process, we will have the migration controls we need while keeping Jersey an attractive and welcoming place to live and work. I'll now pass back to the Chief Minister to sum up.
Right, thanks, Roland. Yes, I'd also like to express my thanks once again to all of the members of the Migration Policy Development Board, the lay members, the Jersey Chamber of Commerce and the IOD representatives, and including Dr. Michael Oliver, and all those who engage with the board in their work in the development of its recommendations to the board, which has been a very sensitive and important topic. And it's been incredibly important that we've given it the serious consideration that it deserves. Now, on the 1st of December, the States Assembly will debate the migration control policy, which, if approved, will allow us to move ahead in the production of the legislation and the development of the migration control proposals set out in the Council Minister's proposition. Now, we are facing uncertain times, and the impacts of Brexit and the coronavirus on the future of the island are not yet fully understood. So the proposed migration controls lodged today are sufficiently robust to restrict the net inward migration rate where required to do so, but also allow the flexibility to allow targeted migration as may be required for our future needs. Combined with the changes to the migration policy, they will allow us to adapt and remain an island which welcomes controlled immigration and the skills and diversity that our immigrant population bring to the community. So basically we're now in a position we'll take questions from the media. So I think I've got Julian from Bailiwick, Islin from Channel, and Richard from BBC. So Julian, shall we, as you're closest to the microphone?
Thank you very much, Chief Minister. Islanders may say that it's all very well setting out a mechanism of migration control as you are today, but when are we actually going to get what islanders want, which is a population policy? We have the toolkit here, but do you have any idea what you are building and when it will be built?
I think the difficulty on all of this, and I fully accept the issue about many people would like to jump to a number. Where do we think population could go? How many should we be allowing in? What's become very clear, particularly as a result of the work of the board over the many months that's been working, is that we didn't have the underlying controls to even give you a remotely sensible number. And I don't know if the media, I think they were sent a link to a video which is on the Gov YouTube channel, which was produced by the Statistics Department and is referenced in the report, which basically illustrates the fact that even if you freeze permissions tomorrow, as in don't issue any new permissions, the population will continue to grow, to continue to increase. And to bluntly, what we're trying to do is be absolutely honest and say that what the controls that have been in place to date have not been working from that perspective. So this is about getting the foundations right, then getting the data right, and that means then you can then do the population policy for it to be meaningful.
You mentioned about proposing a political structure, creating an independent panel, proposing a review of migrant rights. This could take forever, couldn't it?
No, all of this. So in terms of the panel and the changes to the law and things like that, it'll all be in. That will all be in before May 2022, aiming to get it done during 2021. And essentially, it's an amendment to the States of Jersey law to put the onus, and again, it's about bringing rigour to the process, on the council ministers to actually produce a population policy. That gives us 2021 to get the controls and the data and the systems in the right place. That is dependent on A, the States obviously Assembly approving the proposition, and B, the monies in the government plan being approved. So, for example, we've put £1 million aside for the IT systems. So we're serious about it. There's been a lot of work understanding it. I think it's probably the most considered work that's been done it for quite some time. Obviously, looking down to my people to the right, who presumably will be nodding at that. And as I said, it's a first significant step towards a population policy, but delivers the foundations that we need to create one.
And finally, Mark Bollier, in his population study of Jersey, said that the first attempt at a population study was in 1635. In 1972, the Policy and Resources Committee proposed not exceeding the population by 1995 should be 80,000. In 95, we said we should maintain it at 84,000. In 2009, the Council of Ministers said it should not exceed 100,000, and we go on. Why do you have the confidence now that you will actually have a successful population policy?
The confidence I have is that we put the controls in place and that those controls work. And what's been happening to date, as I've said, is that even though politicians, I don't think it was necessarily fully understood, even though politicians may have sought to limit the increase in number of permissions issued or even freeze the number of permissions, what wasn't necessarily fully understood is that the existing permissions allowed a population just to continue to increase. What we're doing is we're breaking that link. And that means that we'll be far better control and far more sensitive and responsive controls as and when we need it. Richard.
So you mentioned the foundations, and that will help gather, all the facts and things that you need. How long is that process going to take? I mean, could we not have just jumped straight into that?
Well, originally there was one of the first proposals was to request the council minister to do certain pieces of work, and actually we've gone and done that work. Is the point? The short answer is no. We don't need permission to go away and generate new systems. I think what we're trying to make sure is that obviously when you're designing a system, you want to know what the basis is for designing it. The basis is what we're proposing or going to be lodging today, which is, for example, breaking this automatic graduation in permissions that, or in years actually, that's been going on for quite some time.
So how long will gathering this data take to set the new policy?
Now, when we get to the data side, I'm definitely going to point my fingers towards Roland or Neil to say if they can get some indications of what's envisaged, because I think that might be helpful.
The systems in place are not good, to put it mildly, and there are multiple data sources that are sort of flat files. So you just get one data source that just gives numbers of people that are of licenses, and then you get another data source that's manpower populated by the manpower return, which says the names of the people who were working for a company for 6 months. But then the next manpower return 6 months later doesn't actually say who's moved and who's changed. And what the officers do, they then go to a third system if they manually want to interrogate an individual. I'm just trying to say it's three disparate systems that are clunky. Those need to be actually brought together and integrated so you can do some sort of data analysis and some deep diving on it to get a clear idea of who is where and what roles and what roles are there within the organisations. I mean, how many baristas do we have? How many people do we have driving vans? I'm using trite examples, but it just says we don't know. So when it comes for a request to come in to HAWAG or for more licences, the officers have no idea whether they're granting licences for a need, a role or responsibility or a skill set that's actually needed in the island. So that tactical request to that tactical answer doesn't help strategically know how many we've got. And I suggest we could reduce the number of licences being offered just by knowing exactly what skills are required and not granting them, shall we say, willy-nilly. So a long answer, but it's an important answer.
Fantastic. But the data itself, how long would you anticipate that would take for us to get to a level where we actually understand the situation?
And that's a particularly good question. The data as populated by officers, we're going to have to get into a self-serving situation, because otherwise, unless you get the data coming in from those people requiring it, and that's going to take a period, I would suggest a period of after the systems are established, a good 6 months, I would say. But don't hold me to that, please. I'm not the data analyst.
One more question. Yeah.
Sorry, Chief. Do you want to?
We'll give you one more and then go to.
Okay, thank you. Some might say this would lead to a divided population with people given different status in society based on how much they earn. Is that correct analysis?
It's not. It isn't not based on earnings. At the end of the day, it's based on what is to the benefit of the island. That's the way it always has worked. And so there's a social need as well as an economic need, shall we say. So I was looking at Len, because obviously he's been in the role of trying to grapple with population for many years, certainly far more than me. But I think that's the general mantra, is that it's about social need as well as economic need, overall take into account of the impacts of the population on the island. And that's one of the reasons why we're suggesting as well putting some greater rigour behind it, not only around the requirement on the future council ministers to always produce a population policy, which we put into law, but also by having a slightly more formalised group of states members, executive and non-executive members, again to give that better political oversight.
I know you mentioned a review of migrants' rights, but on first glance already, I wonder, the 9-month contracts, how do they sit in relation to human rights and the right to a family life as such?
I'm going to defer to the officers down here, but a summary point is, as far as I'm aware, all the proposals are human rights compliant. Neil or Sue or Luke, do you want to comment?
Yes, thank you, Chief Minister. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. The permissions that are being suggested under the Control of Housing and Work Law and the new rules for immigration are compliant with that.
Okay, and obviously the suggestion is that we've had a loss of quite a few EU workers, particularly in the hospitality sector, as a result of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Will this be attractive enough, do we think, to bring enough of them back to fill those roles that need filling?
Right, so what we're talking about is, as we said at this stage, is about the controls. Now the controls are therefore the lever that you can either turn on or turn off, if you see what I mean. So in the introduction, the controls by themselves shouldn't make it more or less attractive, if that makes sense. It'll be then for the politicians of the day to determine what, taking the accounts of, as we said, the social needs and the economic needs of the island, what they think is best in terms of who they allow in under those controls. In terms of next year, particularly in a Brexit year and a post-pandemic year, hopefully, I think we will have to be particularly mindful of, shall we say, all the pressures on islanders as a whole. And that could be on the one side, which could be unemployment for the sake of argument, or on the other side, it could just be the need for additional workforce members because actually we're doing quite well. So we can't. I don't want to prejudice, sort of predicate my my answers or in advance of next year. What we've said, and what I said, I think it was to Chamber of Commerce, I'm going to say end of last year, is that we weren't going to bring sort of new, significantly new changes in how we did things in a kind of Brexit, at that point in a Brexit year. I think we've got to be mindful. We know the immigration rules have got to change, so it's a good time to bring this in and have that break in the automatic graduation process that's been identified and put the other structures in place. But actually 2021 gives us a very good time when we need to be sensitive about things, about getting those levers in place, and then you can decide how you operate them.
Okay, and just finally, it's already late October.
Mm-hmm.
Does that leave enough time for scrutiny? I mean, obviously you want it to be debated on the 1st of December. If scrutiny were to ask for more time and it was knocked on through to next year, what are the implications of that?
Well, I think we take a judgment call. I mean, obviously the immigration is separate to the migration. Let's just see. I think I would make the point, and as certainly Roland's already referred to, the main proposals, well, the final reports of the Policy Development Board were published in March, so there shouldn't be too many surprises in there. So it depends what work has been done in that meantime, and we'll listen to scrutiny and see how we can work it. I did make a commitment that we'd be debating it this year. So from my perspective, we've met that commitment, and then it's down to Assembly members how they want to manage that. Right, it is past. We can either stop there or we can do one more question each. Are you desperate for questions or have you all got sufficient?
Just a very quick question.
Okay.
Do you think all this data will give us an end result that we can say this will be the limit of the population that we desire?
The idea about limits, you can never predict because how far ahead are you looking. What I think it will do, I mean, based on what Roland was describing earlier, we've got systems in place at the moment that don't talk to each other, that just don't, and actually with both immigration and migration, that actually adds cost to business as well and causes confusion sometimes for people wanting to come into the island. So I think if you look at it all that way around, if the systems come out as we would envisage, then actually that will become a much more improved process. And that in itself, and most fundamentally, will start giving us the data that I think everyone always assumes, and probably I would have done, that we had and that we were using and making the decisions. And actually what really has been emerging is that because of the lack of investment, which has been a bit of a mantra from us for quite some time, in IT systems for many years, this is again one of those issues that we're having to deal with. Julian?
Thank you, Chief Minister. Why was an Australian-style point system rejected?
I think I'll bounce that to Roland and Neil, actually.
So the Australian points-based
Or Luke.
system is that immigration
Yeah.
As opposed to migration policy. So it'd be better if either
Yes, as I said that, I was thinking I'd sent it the wrong way. Yeah.
We examined a number of different options available to the island. The UK has a points-based system at the moment. However, you require all the points to be able to make entry into the island, into the UK. We have the flexibility with the size of the island to be able to look at individual roles and determine how we can work with those. In effect, the same result comes from the points-based system as will come with the new immigration system that we're introducing, in that there are exceptions to the skilled worker routes. So those people that fall into a shortage occupation or significantly benefit the island in the role that they'll be doing will benefit from a reduced salary threshold, which is one and the same as the points-based system in the UK. It's just by another method, which is, for us, simpler to manage.
Thank you. And just finally, what happens to people here who are already registered and in the registered and licensed categories? Will they be automatically moved into a new category?
I think the best way of expressing it is that it'll be what we call grandfathered. So essentially the measures, people will continue to progress through the system. If they're on the island already, they'll just continue to progress through the system as they knew it. And then what you're producing in. So this is, on all these things, it's all about long term. You can't suddenly slam on the brakes and stop everything. because there are all sorts of consequences in there, and I suspect you then end up in the human rights territory as well. What we're talking about is get the controls right going forward, then you've got the levers you can manipulate in whichever way you want to do it.
Thank you.
Island, do you want to? No? Okay. Right, on that basis, we'll draw that to a close. So I'd like to wrap up the press conference basically there. Thank you all again, but particularly to Constable Len Norman, to Deputy Roland Huelin, and thanks very much to the officers who spent time, and quite a lot of time, preparing both the future borders and immigration system for implementation and developing the proposed migration control policy. Now, I'd also like to remind everyone viewing, as Len has already referred to, that the virtual Beyond Brexit conference will be taking place this Thursday and Friday. It's going to be streamed live on the government Facebook and YouTube channels, and details of how to join the conference and all the sessions are on the gov.je website. So the conference will be providing official updates and practical advice on the changes you can expect when the Brexit transition period ends on the 1st of January 2021. And I hope you enjoy the conference. But thank you very much, and we'll draw this press conference to a close.